Regarding Men, number 20. Happy Father's Day, you piece of shit.
Welcome, everyone, to Regarding Men number 20. That's right, 20 times we've done this, and they're getting better and better, right? Well, tonight we're going to talk about fatherlessness, and that's a huge topic. We're going to actually end up talking about two articles about fatherlessness that have come out that will just blow your mind when we talk about what they actually said within these articles. But before we do that, let's talk about a little bit about what fatherlessness is all about. You know, in 50 years, we've gone from father knows best to father's a pest. You know, if you can believe it, it's just unbelievable, the shift in thinking. And along with that shift in thinking, the research has told us something really critically important. And that is, fathers are essential. They're literally essential. And if you don't have dads in the home, you've got lots and lots of problems. And watch this little clip here about the problems that we may see from fatherlessness. Here we go.
Whether it's family courts or government programs that support only women and children, the damage is now 39% of school-age children in the United States are living without their fathers. But wait a minute. Just about every childhood problem has been connected to not having a dad. Look at them all. This is what we've brought on ourselves. Research has shown that father absence is more strongly connected to these problems than poverty and other factors. This is one men's issue that if we ignore it, we're asking for societal collapse.
That's a lot of problems, eh? Jeez, can you believe it? I mean, so it's so obvious to anyone who's looked at the research that fatherlessness is a huge problem. And what McClanahan did that no one else has done is she showed that some of these things are literally causative. So that fatherlessness causes these things to happen. I've never seen in social science research anyone claim causation. It's always, this is correlated with this is correlated with this. No, McClanahan's saying this causes this. So we know, it's so clear. So what a juxtaposition. On the one hand, we know that fathers are essential. On the other hand, we've got a culture now that's tearing fathers down at every opportunity. So where do we go from there, guys?
Well, I don't think we can discuss it too much without discussing the feminist influence
Oh, boy.
in this culture regarding men in general, one.
Yeah.
And one of the things that prompted us to have this discussion was an article. Janice, what publication or website was that article in?
Uh-oh. I'm not sure. I printed it out. we may have to dub that back in somehow. I don't know. I printed it out. It's by Catherine Booney and Soraya Chamali. This Father's Day, dads need to listen to why their daughters are so angry and join the fight. And I'm not sure where it comes from. Is it the Atlantic? I think it might be the Atlantic, but I couldn't swear.
It sounds like something from the Atlantic.
The typical man bashing kind of thing. And it is a thoroughly feminist piece of male bashing, and the fact that they would have the gall to publish this and to direct it to the attention of fathers on Father's Day. The one day out of the year when of course it's a difficult day for a lot of people who don't have fathers or who had bad experiences with fathers, or fathers who don't see their children anymore. It can be a very painful day. But the one day when we're supposed to think about what fathers do bring to families and be thankful for good fathers. Here they've got this ridiculous, horrible article. Starts off with the question begging right from the beginning. You have to listen to why their daughters are so angry. It assumes right at the beginning, right up front, that their daughters have this kind of legitimate anger, and that the only role that fathers have is to accept their responsibility for that anger. And the whole article is about how men can become better fathers by getting in touch with their internalized misogyny. And therefore, it's just awful. And it must surely be a kind of reinforcing cycle that it's advocating, because I can't think of a worse thing if you're an angry, confused young woman in her late teens who has been told by feminist teachers and maybe feminist, university instructors that she's going to grow up in a world where there's a wage gap and where sexual harassment creates a toxic environment at work, and where she's going to be sexually assaulted and all of this. And if your father ends up becoming a target of your rage, and all he can do is apologize for his manhood and affirm that you have every right to be angry, I mean, nothing is more guaranteed than to ignite a young woman's contempt and fury than a father who's falling all over himself apologizing for being a man. And one of the things that we know fathers do is fathers prepare their children for reality, because they're not about just constant positive reinforcement, which is what the sort of the mothering role. And of course, I know that not all fathers are like that, not all women are mothering, et cetera, et cetera. So let's accept that from the get-go. But in general, mothers are the more nurturing. They give the the unrequited love, that sort of thing. Fathers are the ones that are more realistic about their children. They're the ones that can recognize if whether their children have special skills or not, or whether there might be behavioral problems. Fathers are the ones that hold their children to a high standard. Fathers are the ones that teach children that they have to earn respect.
They set limits.
They set the limits, exactly.
Yep.
They engage in rough play. They do all sorts of things. They don't tend to talk down to their children, so they can help with verbal development. They do all sorts of different, distinctive kinds of things. And so one of the things that a father might do for his daughter is actually tell her whether her anger is reasonable or not. But in this article, we're told that the only thing the father can do is accept his responsibility for her anger as a man and kowtow to it and apologize. It's just a horrible thing.
Especially when you consider that there will be, unfortunately, a substantial number of fathers that will buy into it and do that very thing, because men can be shamed into this, and they're often defenseless. One of the things that I noticed in the article that was very telling was at the very beginning. It was as though they had talked to fathers who were saying their daughters had become angry. And one of the fathers had said, "I don't know what happened. She used to be so happy." Right. But it became clear that the experience of these fathers was that until recently, their daughters had been more adjusted and happier human beings. Something had happened in recent days, and suddenly they became very angry. And what was that thing? Well, it appears that thing was being exposed to ideological indoctrination of faculty at colleges that are telling these young women that they're victims, that they are being held back, even as their fathers are providing a brilliant, high-level education for them and providing opportunity for them to be what they want to be in life and standing behind them. There are these very, very sick ideologues teaching in our schools that are telling these young women that they're victims, that they may not make it to their next class because they could get raped, that they might as well not get an education because somebody's going to discriminate. They'll never be able to make the money that a man makes in the same field, even though we find in many fields that women make more than what men make, and in other areas that the wage gap disappears once you factor away for women's choices and men's choices approaching professional life. Right. But they create these angry, scathing victims and then tell the fathers, look what we've done. We brainwashed your child. Now we need you to validate our sick work. We need you to tell them that their anger is valid, because they know that fathers are going to say, wait a minute, by instinct are going to say, wait a minute, what are you angry about?
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't have the same opportunity? You're in a school right now that 99% of the planet could never make entry to, and can still be angry at this. But I think it's a part of a larger picture. And there's another article you'll find linked below. The feminist agenda has always been to destroy the family. And one of the ways that you go about doing that, first, of course, you disempower and disenfranchise men.
Yes.
And you demonize them.
Yes.
And then you demonize the family itself.
Yes.
Which is going on. Going after fathers is just one part of it, because as you'll see, there's another article down there, an interview with a woman named Sonia Lewis, I believe her name is, that believes that if you want to beat capitalism, that you must destroy the nuclear family. And
Right.
of course, as Tom was saying earlier, all the research says, well, if you want to fill your prisons with angry, violent men, then you need to destroy the family. If you want academic failure, you need to destroy the family. If you want drug abuse, teen pregnancy, truancy, juvenile delinquency, you need to destroy the family, because these are what those things bring. And it's like these people are, I don't know, I'd welcome both of you to tell me what is wrong with these people that they cannot know that destroying families is a bad thing.
I think they do know. I think they do know that it's going to tear things apart, because they want it torn apart in order to build their thing of beauty.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
They really feel that, and they've been writing about this for years. I remember when I first read something that a feminist wrote about tearing down the family and dismantling fathers in order to make women more whole. When I read that, I went, what? So I started telling people around me, the feminists really want to dismantle the family. They want to tear the whole thing apart. You're crazy. You're out of your mind. They wouldn't want that, blah, 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 blah. So I just stopped talking about it. But this was 10 years ago, maybe. And they've been writing about this stuff since the 70s.
Yes, they have.
So this is their dream. The dream is to dismantle this family, and that's what they're doing. They know that the more chaos, the more people will turn away from a family kind of attitude and idea. It's remarkable.
Well, the family is a very conservative unit.
Yes. Yes.
It's where the values of the society are passed down. It creates a functioning family, creates strong individuals with strong individual values who are less likely to become, willing workers in the socialist project.
Correct.
So if your project is an overarching state that manages everything and brings about the utopia, then of course you have to destroy the family in order to make that possible. So
yes.
These people do believe that the family is the locus of evil, because it's the place where gender roles are constructed, as they always say.
Right.
And so of course we want to destroy those, and in order to do that we have to get rid of the family. And they also believe that a much better social situation, a much happier, more peaceful collective will result when we no longer have the nuclear patriarchal family.
Yeah.
But after all, we know that the family is what stands in between
yes.
individuals and a servile relationship with the state.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, it's their infantile dream. This is the dream of an immature being, to think that could happen. I mean, we know so many things now about fatherhood. It's just mind-blowing. And one of the things we know that they found out is that it's fathers who teach the children empathy.
Yes.
Fathers who teach empathy. And how the hell do they do that? Everyone thinks mom is so sweet and nice. She's the one that teaches them. No, it's the father teaching empathy, because he sets the limits. He says, you want your ice cream? You eat your broccoli. No, Daddy, I want ice cream. Nope, not until you eat your broccoli. And this goes on and on and on and on. The kid figures out Dad is not going to give in. So the kid's got to eat the broccoli first, then they get the ice cream. What the researchers now know is that whole process of having to eat that broccoli before you get the ice cream forces the child to see the world through someone else's eyes. And that's the rudiment of empathy, is this capacity to see the world through someone else's eyes. It's not a thing of beauty. And, we're up to like 38%, I think almost 40% of school children in the United States today are living without a father. I mean, think about that. That's crazy. So you'd think if fathers were a big influence on empathy, and we have less and less fathers in the home, you'd think that empathy would be going down, right? And that's exactly what they've found. The research shows that it's been about a 40% drop in empathy in college students. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just completely bizarre, but that's the truth. And I think a lot of it's got to do with lacking fathers in the home. We've got to get more dads back in, and we've got to route this feminist crap as being crazy. It's nutty.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, one of the things that we're so concerned about in general in the men's movement is is parental alienation, when mothers do that, and overwhelmingly it's mothers. Our fathers do it too in some cases, but overwhelmingly it's the father who is alienated from his children, because the mother tells the children that the father doesn't care about them and badmouths the father and everything. But now we see it happening on a larger level, with an article like this one about Father's Day and how lousy fathers are and how they have to acknowledge their own misogyny. What they are doing is, if it is a case where the father is still involved with his daughters and still in the home, what they're doing is alienating the daughters at a later point in life.
Janice, that's a great point. I've never thought of that before, but that's right. The whole thing they're doing is alienating fathers from the family.
Yeah. They're getting the daughters to expel the fathers from their role in their lives. And I've had quite a number of fathers, and I'm sure you guys have too, who've written me in anguish that they've watched this happen to their daughters. They've seen them become transformed, and they don't know what to do about it. The daughter goes off to college. She comes back at Christmas time, or she's not necessarily gone somewhere, but he just sees the anger, the accusations, the blaming, this false ideology that takes over her consciousness, and he doesn't know what to do, because he's used to being this loving, gentle father. All of a sudden he's being accused of things. He's hearing all these false statistics. He's getting into arguments, ideological arguments with his daughter. He doesn't know what to do, because on the one hand, like, he's then in this what seems to be an impossible bind. If he argues with her, then that just affirms exactly what these two researchers, or not researchers, but what these two ideologues are claiming, that he lacks empathy, he fails to see their justified anger. But so that he's damned if he does that. But then if he goes along with it, he's damned too, because then he's just, allowing himself to become a pawn in her distorted fantasy world. So I've had men write me and say, I don't know what to do. Either way, it looks like I'm going to lose my daughter. So what do I do? And
you can. I tell them, and I do get emails from fathers like that, and I tell them that the only recourse they have is if they're paying tuition to have this done to their children, to stop and find a different school. There are schools that don't indoctrinate this way, but I've also encountered so many fathers that say, well, I couldn't possibly do that. I couldn't possibly take her out of this school. And I don't know what to tell those guys except, okay, welcome to the world you're helping create by enabling this stuff. It's sad.
Yeah.
But I mean, and this stuff really isn't that new. I was telling Tom, we were talking earlier, back in the 30s, the Soviets had poster campaigns going out telling women to break free of the slavery of the kitchen and to come to work, to come join the glorious workers in the factories, in manufacturing, and whatever it was the state wanted them for. One of the things that Marxists want is they want workers who will work and turn over all their efforts to the state.
Right. Yeah.
That's what fuels Marxism. It's a slavery scam. And so what they did was they told women who were reasonably content in homes with, compared to the men, better positions in life, and told them, you're a slave. And it worked. They came out of the homes, families in the Soviet Union started falling apart, and they responded to these campaigns.
Yeah.
And then we have, what did we have, Obama on Father's Day? He kept saying every Father's Day, men need to step up and be better fathers. And I'll never forget one little brief YouTube video I saw was an African-American man. And they played the clip of Obama saying fathers need to stand up, step up and step up to the plate, some garbage like that. And this guy came on and said, I did. I stepped up to the plate and I got a hard ball right between the eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was, until men are willing to do that, I personally, I don't know what solutions we have, because as much as I want to see these guys as victims, and they are in many ways, I don't think victim mentality helped women at all. I think it's destroyed them in this culture, and I don't think victim mentality will help men. Men have to be accountable for what they're doing. And if you're going to send, if you're going to send your daughter to Columbia, and don't be surprised when she comes back and hates your guts.
Yep.
That's what they do there.
I agree, Paul. And I think that it's also okay for men to stand their ground. Just stand your ground. If you believe something to be the truth, stick with that. And you don't have to kowtow to some silly article like this today.
No, you don't.
You can speak your truth to your daughter in a loving way and let that stand, And the consequences will come one way or the other. But, you have been, what's the word for it? Used your integrity, in standing your ground. Because it's easy to go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be such an asshole. It's like, oh, that's not going to help. She needs you to be strong. She needs you to say, no, that's bullshit. I don't see it like that at all. Here's the way I see it. Boom.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she's going to believe the crap even more. If you jump into it. Ugh.
Well, the whole article is so, it's such a vivid illustration of the warped success of the feminist project, because it's all about perception. The entire thing. There's all sorts of links to studies, and I have to admit I didn't go and look at all the studies that are linked, but it's clear from the text of the article that the studies are all about perception. And so in this particular study, 63% of women perceive that they will be, that they have encountered sexual harassment, but only 43% of men perceive that women are sexually harassed. And, and there's all this jumble of, and it's all about men failing to perceive the world in the way that feminists taught women to perceive the world, which is a world, of course, in which women are always at a disadvantage and men are always privileged. And so the fact that men see a different reality, or perhaps actually see reality, and women don't see reality as a result of feminist indoctrination, becomes further evidence that feminism is somehow true. Even though a reasonable person looking at these various studies would say, well, these women have all been trained to misperceive reality, not to see it accurately. And so now men are being blamed for not also misperceiving reality and enforcing women's misperception. It's
the same old song, men are not sensitive enough. Because, it's like men have been shamed for not being sensitive enough for 50 years now. Give it up. Men have a different way to process crap.
And what they used to say back in the 70s, guys, Gloria Steinem was famous for saying men don't get it. And there is a lot of power in that line, because it's gaslighting. It's saying there's a whole world of abuse and reality here that men simply can't see because of patriarchy or because of their own arrogance or whatever it is that prevents men from seeing the truth of, 3 out of every 2 women are raped every 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Maybe-
And men just don't get that. And so what did men do in the 70s? They said, oh, okay, well, there's something I'm not seeing here. Let me see if I can get it. And sure enough, you remember Jean-Luc Picard, there are 3 lights. Men wouldn't do that. They said, oh, yeah, there's 4 lights. And they began parroting what, oh, yes, of course. Yeah, now I see it. Because they don't want to be on the outs with women.
Right.
Sorry,
Right.
guys, that's just being a pussy. That's
Yes.
all that is.
Yes.
It's being a limp pussy. And that has been feminism's open door to
Yes.
destroy families.
And men become pussies because of gynocentrism and the cultural push to make sure that men make people happy. He's got to try and keep his wife happy. He's got to try and keep his kids happy to a lesser degree, but still the same kind of thing. And when they're not happy, then he's got more work to do. I mean, that's been the assumption. And so they use that whole piece to try and push him into this craziness. Oh, you got to be more sensitive.
Yeah.
Bullshit. You got to be yourself. Hell with sensitive. Ugh.
Yeah.
This whole thing's infuriating. You've got to have my hat is off to these people, though, for how effective they've been in brainwashing. It's literally unbelievable how effective they've been in the schools, in the media, in Hollywood, academia, every place. They have really been effective in keeping people thinking that the feminist path is the path.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, Tom, that's sort of like giving accolades to the guy that's 8 feet tall and can dunk a basketball. When you've got gynocentrism working in your favor, where the whole culture is driven to protect women, to meet their needs, to take care of them, when that is the raison d'etre for the entire race.
Yes, it's easier.
Then it's a lot easier to brainwash
battle. You're right.
Yeah.
But still, it's a mammoth task that they've accomplished.
It is.
But you're right. They had gynocentrism to make it a downhill slope. They could just coast down the hill if they said the right things. Whereas going the opposite direction, trying to tell the truth, is an uphill battle for men. It's literally an uphill battle.
It really is. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Boy, these conversations always end on a happy note.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think it is very important advice, I think, though, for men, especially in this case for fathers facing that kind of situation. And I really do think that I actually think that many teenage girls, they need their father to stand up to them and say, no, it isn't true.
Exactly.
That's the kind of stepping up that we really need from dads, is stepping up to say, no, this isn't true. Your professor lied to you.
Yeah, yes, I think that's really, and I mean, not to get too personal at this point, but my father did that for me. Nice. At a really important stage. When I was 16 years old, I had a silly boyfriend. Well, he wasn't silly, but I was being silly with my boyfriend. And one night I came home and I wanted to tell my dad about a fight I'd had with my boyfriend. And I don't even know if this was conscious, but I was expecting my dad to become the protector and to say, oh, you poor thing. Oh, that bad boyfriend of yours. And he didn't. He said, well, if you're going to be stupid in the way you've been stupid, what can you expect but something bad like this happening? And I was really shocked. And I even remember standing at the corner. He was in the den watching TV, watching the news or something. And I'd come home from roller skating. And I remember standing there and I had expected this gush of fatherly benevolence. And instead I got a bit of not cruel, but I got a bit of a slap in the face. And I remember feeling quite, But then, I realized, okay, I'm not going to get that thing that I thought I wanted from my dad. But of course, years later, I realized I didn't want that. I didn't need that from my dad. Then I did need him to say, fuck up. you're an adult, you're a smart girl, start behaving like a smart girl, stop being silly.
Yeah.
And, and it was, I
It
think,
really made you think.
yeah, he and I think that his doing that for me at various moments, and this is not to say that he wasn't a loving father, because I always was aware that he loved me, but he wouldn't put up with feminine nonsense.
Yes.
And I think that really helped me to,
Yes.
I mean, I was indoctrinated in later life, but it helped me to snap out of it and to see that it was nonsense. And I think the role that my father played in not pandering had a huge impact in helping me to do that.
Yes.
That's why fathers are so important.
They really are important in so many different ways. The whole thing about throwing kids up in the air, the dads just automatically, without thinking, they'll just take the kid and throw them up in the air, And it's like, now we know that this throwing up in the air helps kids later with risk taking,
Yeah.
Same thing with roughhousing. Dads roughhouse with the boys and the girls. We know now that the roughhousing helps the kids to understand the difference between violence and play.
Right.
Where does one start and where does one stop? So all kinds of things that dads do automatically. You out there, you as a dad, you do these things automatically, and it's really good for your kids. Trust your instincts. Trust your instincts. You know the right things to do. Don't listen to this feminist bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
And so I think that's why we want to give our humanitarian award to people who do this kind of research. And Tom, you had specifically mentioned
Sarah McClanahan. She's the one who did the research that started showing that there is a causative connection between fatherlessness and all these problems.
And let's not underestimate how important it is that we have research that shows that fatherlessness causes these problems. It's not just a positive correlation.
Right.
It is a root cause of delinquency, of teen pregnancy, of drug abuse, of academic failure, of depression, mental illness. I mean, you go down the list.
Self-harm.
Every psychosocial factor by which we measure the health and well-being of children is impacted by fathers. And if you take them away, you are hurting your child. And, that's what I've had to say to divorcing mothers, because I've heard so many of them say, oh, the children are a jest, they'll be okay. And, they rationalize, they want that to be true.
Right.
But one of the things I wish more mental health professionals told these women is no, they won't.
Right.
Suck it up, stay married until they're gone from home. Do what you've got to do, because unless you're in a directly, really, truly abusive situation, then breaking up the family is a detriment to children. They will spend the next 15 years wondering if it was their fault. They will go through all kinds of psychological changes over it, and they will not fare as well in life on average with their father removed from their lives. They just don't do it. And any rationalization we have about, oh, it's better, I would rather see my parents break up than fighting all the time, all that's garbage. It's all garbage. Children need their fathers.
Amen.
End of story.
Good point to stop on.
Mm-hmm.
How about the puta?
Oh, yeah, we got the dos putas.
Who gets the putas?
We give it to Catherine Bunai and Soraya Chamali for the article we've linked below about fathers listening to why their daughters are so angry and joining the fight. A horrible, horrible article.
Absolutely. And if we had a puta coin, we could put their image on one side, one woman's image on one side and the other on the other. And no matter which way you flip the coin, you come up with a puta.
Well, we'll have two of them flying in just a second.
Yep.
Oh, there they go. There they go.
Aha.
Two putas. The Puta sisters.
Awful, awful, but a very representative kind of analysis. You see it everywhere.
Crazy.
Not surprising.
Crazy.
We joke. We try to make light of it. We have the Puta Awards, which is kind of a funny thing. We're talking about really terrible people here.
Evil.
We're talking about terrible human beings.
Yeah.
They are intentionally undermining the loving connection between fathers and daughters for a political agenda.
And
It
fathers and sons,
is
too.
absolutely gross and disgusting.
And
These
fathers and
people
mothers.
deserve condemnation.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. And on that note,
On that happy note,
oh God, you guys are fun. Oh me. So are we finished?
we're finished.
Should we turn it off? See if I
Okay.
can turn the thing off.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Better good. Oh.
Yeah, you almost forgot that, Gold.
Almost did. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.